All right, my friends, for those who are watching, I'm sorry they changed the clocks in Israel over here. So now it is not 8:15 like I thought, and that's why I woke up at this point. But I went to sleep very late. But it is now 9:15. So adjust your clocks or adjust your whatever it is schedule accordingly. Now it is 9:15 in Israel. So the classes, in other words, will start now 1 hour earlier. Is that right? Right. You'll have to set your clocks 1 hour earlier. Okay, however it works, you'll figure it out. But in any case, I woke up an hour too late. So I have to wake up an hour earlier. So from now on, set your clocks 1 hour earlier. It is now 9:15 in Israel, 1 hour after. I mean, if you didn't change your clock, so you got the same time as we do. But in other words, it's now 9:15. So from now on, I'm going to have to wake up 1 hour earlier over here in Israel. 1 hour earlier, I'm going to have to wake up. So classes will be by you, whatever time you've got over there, unless you changed your clocks also. I don't know why I have to change the clocks anyway, but that's the way it goes. Here we go. So we're learning now about what does it mean for us that we have to have split hoofs? What does it mean we have to have split hoofs? The Rebbe gave two explanations so far, and we're in the middle of the second one. What does it mean that we have to meet it? The Rebbe said that these are signs of a kosher animal. So in other words, it's talking about our animal soul. Okay, if you haven't heard about this yet, so I'm telling you now, a Jew has two souls. There's a book called the Tanya. Tanya, that's the basic book, of Chabad Hasidut. And it explains that one of the ways that a Jew is different from the non-Jews is that Jews have two souls. One soul is what's called the natural soul, and the other one's called the godly soul. The natural soul in Tanya is called the animal soul because, in comparison to the godly soul, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different world. Even though the fact of the matter is it's a human soul, and so in a way, there's really three souls. A Jew has what's called an animal soul. The top part of that is a human soul, but then there's also what's called a godly soul. And a non-Jew has a animal soul and a human soul, but it doesn't have a godly soul. What's a godly soul? The godly soul is you say a sense of a sense, like the eyes, ears, nose, mouth. Well, a Jew has a sense that God is creating us for a purpose. He's creating us, and He's creating us for a purpose, and that the Torah is true, and that the Torah is the Creator's blueprint for the world, and our responsibility to do every word that it says in the Torah. Every Jew feels this. Every Jew feels it. That's what makes him a Jew. That's what makes him a Jew. Except for that, I want somebody to explain to me what you think a Jew is without this explanation. Why people hate Jews, why Jews are different. The Jews are chosen. We're chosen to tell the whole world how much God loves them, how important they are in God's eyes. To make the whole world have this Jewish feeling, responsibility. The thing is that the non-Jews, they don't have to do all the Torah. They have to do all the Torah that's relevant to them, which is called the Noahide commandments. Okay. So the Jewish people, they have this obligation to fix up the whole world. Okay, so first of all, in order to do this, you have to fix yourself up first. Two of the first basic steps is you have to have split hooves and chew your cud. What does this mean spiritually? People do not have hooves. What are you supposed to split? So we're not talking about making plastic surgery or something. We're talking about making real spiritual corrections, not surgery. Maybe you want to call it surgery, but anyway, to make corrections. Some of it is like the circumcision. Some of it, you have to get rid of some things that are covering over, but mostly you have to fix yourself up. That's why it's called the animal soul, because it has to be tamed. So what is it? What do we have first of all? The Rebbe said the hooves of an animal are the part of him that's close to the ground. We're talking about fixing up the animal soul here. A part of you that deals with the world, or in simple language, one word, one letter name for the animal soul is I. 2-letter word for the animal soul is me. The animal soul is me. When I'm in the world, when I deal with people, when I am hungry, when I am thirsty, when I am tired, when I have an idea, I want to make money, I want to have success, I want to these things are what's called the animal soul. Natural things. Natural things. Some people naturally like music, some people like that's all the animal soul. It's called animal because it's your natural traits in relation to the world. In relation to the world. Animal soul. So you also have a human soul. Your human soul can tell you how to use these things better. How to get more money, how to get more food, how to get what food. But the Jewish people have this godly soul. And the godly soul tells you, what does God want? In your whole formula, your whole what is it called? Your worldview. Is God part of this? What God wants? Well, that's the job of the Jews, is to make it happen. But first of all, they have to make it happen in themselves. So that's the idea of a split hoof. A split hoof is, the hoof is what touches the ground, but it has to be split. It has to be open to the sky. In other words, that you're standing on the ground, but part of it, the front part of it, is split all the way through so that the sky sees the ground wherever you walk. In other words, godliness shines into the world. And when you're in the world, you're thinking about, what does God want me to do in the world? That's what it means, split hoof. Another meaning of split hoof. This is especially relevant to Jews. What do we say? The job of the Jews is to convince the whole world that God exists. That's what Abraham. Jews are, the first Jew was Abraham. Abraham was called our father. Abraham, his most notable thing was he tried to convince the whole world, either by his deeds, by his words, by his goals, the whole entire world. At that time, the whole entire world were only non-Jews. The whole entire world should serve God. That's why it's called Avraham. He got his name changed from Avram, which means a high father, to Avraham, which means the father of all mankind. That's Avram. But when you're doing this, very, 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 how do you say, demanding job. So sometimes if you want to succeed, so you do things that bring you apparent success, external success, but not internal success. What do you want? Everyone should come close to the Torah. First of all, you got to get the Jews first, right? So the Jews first, and if it happens to be with a non-Jew, talk to them also. But the main thing is with the Jews first. But it also applies to influencing non-Jews. When the hoof is split, it has to be on the right side and the left side. It's split into two, right and left. Right is giving, being lenient, love, being friendly, open. Left is refraining, being severe, being exact, having a defined life. Chesed is love, being open. I love everybody. The main thing is you should love me. And that's the right side. The left side is I'm being exact. You have to do the Torah. I don't care about anything. The Torah is the law, strict. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And also you must do this. It's urgent, you have to do it. So there has to be a balance between the two of them, right and left. Says the Rebbe, a lot of times when people want to influence others, so they cut corners. They want their message to be popular. And that's not according to the will of the creator of the universe. On the other hand, if you're too strict, so nobody's going to want to have anything to do with you. right? You have to do everything. You have to do it now, right? I can't bear anybody who's not exactly like me. That's also not good. So there has to be a balance between the two of them. But where do people make of the most mistake? Because here we're talking about what they call in outreach. If it's really the job of the Jews to be like Abraham, so the main thing is just to bring people close, to be lenient, to be open, love. Says the Rebbe, of course you have to make Jews come close. There we go. Let's 1 second. Point over here. There you go. The Indian is, as mendarf mekarav zayin yidden, you have to bring Jews closer to the Torah. This is sort of like the banner of Chabad. What makes Chabad different from all the other movements in Judaism? All the other different movements in Judaism, usually each group wears its own garments. It has its own way of dressing. And they have their own books that they learn from. And they have their own leaders that they come from. But they're all basically there to strengthen the group, right? To strengthen the group, learn Torah, do commandments, very good. Chabad's thing is to go out. Jews, there's some that stress learning Torah, some stress prayer, some groups of Judaism, they stress prayer, some stress the land of Israel, we have to go to Eretz Israel. And Chabad stresses Jews. And non-Jews also, but the non-Jews they're not the big problem now. The big problem is the Jews. We have to convince Jews to act like Jews, to think like Jews, to be like Jews, to do the Torah. We have to do it. So it says, yes, it's true. You have to makar of Jews to Torah. It's true. Menhat showing read like we said many times. And there is the parish of the Mishnah, Oeves Abrios Makarvim the Torah. Says you have to be like one of the pupils of Aaron. Right? We just finished learning. Aaron. Love all the creations and bring them to the Torah. As a filadivas nit mer vi abriya ba'alma. You have to love the creations. We're talking about Jews. Why do we call them creations? There's some people that the only good thing you can say about them is that God creates them. Even those people. This means they have no good quality except for what? That God could create them. There's some people that you can say, listen, only God can create a person like this. They're not honest, they're not whatever. Nevertheless, you have to makar of them to the Torah. Which that's the reason, like for okay. Aber does was a time, and that's what they claim. As to leave them, in order to do this, so you have to fix up the Torah. Was which really it means they're destroying the Torah in the Torah. Chas v'shalom. This is Hepech derech Torah. This is the opposite of the Torah. Uvi their lashon, like this language is in the Mishnah itself. Umakarvim the Torah, you have to love every Jew, even though the most distant. What do you want to say? How did she say? Detestable Jew. You have to and makarvim the Torah. You have to find a way to love them and make them come close to the Torah. But you have to leave the Torah where it is and bring them close to the Torah. So bring them to the Torah, aber nit schleppen the Torah, but not to make the Torah lenient and bringing it according to their feelings to them. Right? In big, this is talking what we call Reform Judaism. Reform Judaism says that the main thing is do a little bit, right? God should be thankful you're doing anything. We're reforming the Torah. You have to change the Torah according to the times. Of course, they point out that the rabbis did it, don't they? Didn't the rabbis make up all sorts of laws? It's just the rabbis made laws to be more severe. But the rabbis rarely, very rarely, if ever, made laws to be more lenient. Even what they say is that it's true, that the Torah is too hard. And the main thing is you have to get You have to influence Jews. As durch them, mit caravan Eden, but by means of this, you're making Jews come close to the Torah. Darban Basin, you have to know, as al pi din Torah, according to the law of the Torah. Torah nit mishana zayin chas v'shalom. If you look kind diktu kal from the Torah, you can't change even one little letter of the Torah. Side the Araisa, whether in the Torah, the laws that come from the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, or even from the Talmud. Unafilu dem was Rabbeinu haben mitakan zayin. Even those things, the customs that the rabbi said in the last generations, you're not allowed to change. Unless there is a true prophet of God, he can change the law temporarily. Was done, which then is thus a din from the Torah, then it's a law from the Torah. One second. I can change, make this thing bigger here. Oh. Too big. Okay, no, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Very good. Except a prophet, a true prophet, which when here he says something temporarily, like they have the story with Elijah the prophet at Mount Carmel. He made sacrifices. They had the sacrifices against the Baal, which you weren't allowed to do at that time. You weren't allowed to make sacrifices outside of the temple. You can't outside of the tabernacle, whatever it is, especially those was done. Is there's a din from the Torah, it's the law of the Torah. The Alam mitzvahs, like the first temple was already built, right? The time of Elijah the prophet. The Alam mitzvahs, like all the mitzvahs, as men darv zich zu herin to him. If a prophet says to do something temporarily, you have to listen to him, unless he tells people to worship idols. When a Zoe the Elion, like Elijah the prophet at Mount Carmel, he was a prophet, and it was only a temporary thing. He said we can make sacrifices outside of the holy temple, right? Which is forbidden to do. But because it was temporary and he was making this battle with the prophets of the Baal, and the Baal, so it was some sort of idol worship in it. So it was allowed one time. But Tormen nip up, Karen, you cannot change a ziz, even a little bit, calls you even a tiny little bit from the Torah. Doesn't make any difference what you might accomplish by means of doing this. And especially is the emes that the truth is, as nit nor was durch dem vet men gor nit metaken. Not only are you not really fixing anything, but and you're not really bringing Jews close to the Torah, but exactly the opposite. By means of this, you make the world worse. Men vert a line eingeschlungen in ze. You join yourself to the people who don't do the Torah. You're making the Torah lenient. Biz men carrot up. You take away totally Judaism. Wie der bewusste mashal, like the law of the example that was brought from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, as b'shas a mensch gefindt sich verblazet in Welt, a person when he finds himself lost in the Wald, in the forest, zwischen Chayas Trufas, and there's all sorts of wild animals over there. As main doch does nit as is arois from thine house, that he went out of his house and immediately he went into the forest. No, nor freer, but first of all, it goes by gradual steps. Gegangen b'derech hamelech. First of all, he was going great. He went out of his house, right? Malkush Olam, he was going in a straight path, a wonderful path. Und der noch, but after that, there's upgekehrt. He all of a sudden deviated from the straight path, a little tiny bit, right? Like you get on the wrong train. In the wrong train, you don't know, and you're driving, everything seems to be okay. You see the town little by little by little by little. All of a sudden, hope you find yourself, instead of being in Alaska, you find yourself in Florida. What happened? Because a little by little he changed until this little, first of all, changed just by a hair. And then he gave another little bit, and then another little bit, until finally he realizes that, wow, I am in the middle of the forest surrounded by wild animals. What is the Rebbe saying? A person starts to become lenient, there's no end to it. Now, true, again, we have to stress, you want the Jew to become more observant, So sometimes you can't throw the whole thing on him in one time. It's like being in a forest. Let's take to continue the example. You're in the forest and you find a way to make a little fire. Right? You rub two sticks together. What do you have to do? And you make a fire and say, well, I'm so happy there's a fire. So you take a huge log and you throw it on top of this little fire. You can't do that. You have to throw a little bit more, a little bit more. The same thing, you want a Jew to come closer to the Torah. So little by little, you tell him, first of all, to come to a class. He can stay only for 3 minutes if he wants to. And then maybe you invite him to your house. And if he wants to, right, to have a little, to talk over things. And if he wants to leave, he can. You put on tefillin on him one time, right? And then you say, if you'd like to come back tomorrow, we'll put on another time. He says, no, I'll come back once a month. Once a month is also good for the beginning. But you have to let the person know to fill in everything you put on every day. Every day. Torah is a wonderful thing. You should learn it every moment that you have available. Shabbat is a great, you're not supposed to drive your car on Shabbat. You have to let the people know what the goal is, right? If they're not able to personally, so sometimes you can't force them for sure, but you can encourage them. That's the whole idea of having a, what's it? Yes. Ches. The simon from Mafris Parsa, this that a person is a Jew, has what's called split hoofs, namely that he shines godliness into everything that he does. Thinks, what does God want? What does the Shulchan Aruch want? And also that he has a right side and a left side. That he's because it's such an important thing to influence other Jews, but he doesn't do it in a way that's pure leniency. He doesn't try to be too, open, too open with the Torah. Torah has to be open. But on the other hand, everything has to be exactly according to the Torah. And you have to be open to criticism. You have to be open to criticism. Somebody says, hey, what you're doing is not right. You say, okay, maybe you could have a point. Tell me why. Bring me a proof. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong according to the Torah, then I'll stop doing it. Right? There's endless questions that people ask the Rebbe, because Chabad, the way of Chabad, is in a way very unusual, right? It's not like any of the other groups. None of the other groups go out in the streets. Is it permissible? How do you do it? Everything has to be according to the Torah. There's Simon from Parsa, this having a split hoof, to let God shine into everything you do, and also to have a right and a left side, a severe and a kind side as well. So the other way, a kind side and a severe side as well. This is not enough. An animal, in order for it to be kosher, has to also chew its cud. Mendarf haben zich, the simon from Malagira. It also has to chew its cud. Yeder davar, everything that's physical, was men git tan, which you go to do. Darf men gut eberkain, you have to chew it over well. Mavarer zain einmal und nochmal. You have to check it out once and again. See here soll das tan, if you should do it or not. Und wie hier soll das tan, and how you should do it. Und nor done it, nor done it. Only then is this a be'ema Torah, is it a kosher animal? Maybe I can still, okay. Alpi Chasidus, according to Chasidus, this is what's called biruring, or the language of Kabbalah, birur ban, v'achakach birur ma. Before you do anything in the world, that's called birur ma, elevating the world. Ban, by the way, is the gematria of animal. You want to purify your animal soul, you have to do it. Start working on it. But afterwards, birur ma. Afterwards, ma is the gematria of man. These are two different, so to speak, names of God. They're numerical values of how you spell God's name. God's name is 4 letters, Yud, and then Hey, and then Vav, and then Hey. So you take the Yud, if you fill it up, it's Yud, Vav, Daled. So Yud alone is 10. But if you fill it up, then it's 20. Vav is 6, Daled is 4. So filled up, it's Yud, Vav, Daled, which is 20. But alone, it's only so when you fill up the name of God, Yud, K, Vav, K, which alone is 26. But if you fill up the letters, right, like you fill up the Yud with a Vav Dalet, and you fill up the Hey with an Alef, etc., so it comes out to be 45. There's another way of filling it up, which comes out to be Ban, 52. In any case, these different names are different aspects of God, and God, as we know, creates the world and gives us power to change the world. So this is Ban, means animal, elevating things from below to above. And Ma means thinking about what we're doing, bringing godliness from above to below. It says that when our job in the world is to work with the world, fix the world. That's why God put man here, to make the world perfect. But in order to perfect the world, is we have to do, and then we have to think about it afterwards. And again, to do, but to think about it. We have to refine the world, and then we have to think about it. How did we do? Did we really do according to the Torah or not? Maybe I can tell the story which illustrates both things about having a split hoof and this thing of chewing your cud. What do we say? Having a split hoof means that godliness has to shine through, and also everything you do has to be in a way of love, but it has to be strict according to the Torah. Once I was in this place, it doesn't make any difference when. And there was a big group that was there, and suddenly somebody was asked to give a lecture, and he gave a lecture, and he talked about how bad Chabad is. There used to be this one person. Now, thank God, it's already stopped. But there was this one very strongly political, religious guy, and he declared war on Chabad. And he was very, very, how do you say, very, very influential. And the people that he didn't actually cause to hate Chabad, he caused them to have very serious doubts about learning Hasidut or whatever. But interestingly enough, he had no proof whatsoever, and nobody asked him for proof. Nobody asked him for proof. They just said, "Oh, he's so great." Anyway, so once I was at a place, and somebody started talking about. So I stood up and I said, "Excuse me, but I want to ask you something. Have you got any proof for what you're saying?" Okay, now I want to tell you why this is. So he, all of a sudden, he never thought that anybody would ask for a proof. You're not allowed to hate a person in Judaism unless you have a proof. You have to have a very strong proof. To love a person, you love a person for no reason. Like we say, just he's created by God. He's created by God. There he is. God creates everything. That's a reason to love another person. But to hate another person, right, you have to have a good reason. Everything has to be according to the Torah. So love, you have to love everybody, but it has to be according to the Torah. There has to be a way you do it according to the Torah. But the same thing, hate even more so. Then you really have to check yourself because there's no commandment to hate anybody. So it has to be something that's really clear. So anyway, he had no idea what to do. He was just totally confused. Okay, so that's the right and the left. Here's also chewing your cud. My nature, personally, is that I have a very bad temper. Not a nice thing to say, but I have a terrible temper. I have a very terrible temper. And when I became religious, 90%, 95%, 98%, I realized that it was stupid to have a bad temper, and I didn't have a bad temper. But nevertheless, still, things got me angry. In my household, no. And by other people, no. But when somebody went against Chabad, I would get very aggravated, very angry. Or someone going against Judaism, I would get very angry. I would not express it. No, I wouldn't express it. But inside, it made me very angry, personally angry. But I worked on myself, and I realized that this is not a good thing to get angry. It's a thing you have to take action. You can't just let everybody do what they want. We're here in order to fix up the world, but not in an angry to scream. It's not a way to do it. And here I succeeded in myself. This person stood up, spoke terribly against Chabad, terribly against Chabad, and I was very, very calm. And I said, "Can you bring me a proof? Have you got any sort of an idea of what you're saying that's wrong? It could be that you're making mistakes, etc." So what am I trying to bring from this story? Two things. Number one, you want to do something, it has to be according to the Torah. You have to bring proof. Whatever it is, bring a proof for what you're doing in the Torah. These ladies wanted to put on tefillin. Put on tefillin. According to the Torah, it's permissible. Look in the Shulchan Aruch. It says clearly in the Shulchan Aruch that the big commentators in the Shulchan Aruch say women should not put on tefillin. That they're allowed to, yes, they're allowed to, but they should not do it. Right? And it brings different reasons why. If a woman wants to put on tefillin, she can put it on in her house or something, but nevertheless, she shouldn't put on at all. That's what it says. It's advisable. So you can't look for permission for what you're doing, an excuse for what you're doing, and ignore anything that doesn't agree with yourself. But you're not the boss. The Torah is the boss. Everything has to be according to the Torah. That's split hooves, right and left. Also, another thing is when you do something and you're sure it's according to the Torah, nevertheless think it over. It could be, like it said over here, we had before, according to the Ramban, that a person can be, according to the Torah, you can find excuses for everything. Everything. Just think for one moment and we'll finish this Sichot. Just think. This is very shocking. In the first temple after King Solomon died, we talked about this a lot of times because it's a thing that very shocks me very much. In the first temple after King Solomon died, as King Solomon, of course, was the first king. There was going to be another, what is it, the 400 and whatever his years, the 380 years, something of the temple. After he died, so his son was not a good king, and there came a prophet, Ashiloni, and he told Yerovam ben Nevat, a very great Jew, great leader, tremendous scholar, that he should split the kingdom and take 10 tribes to the north. And he did. He split the kingdom to 10 tribes to the north. And immediately, for whatever reasons it was, it's not important, he stopped people from coming down to the south. He didn't want to lose his power. And in the south was where the Holy Temple was. And he put guards there. And he made 2 big golden calves and told everyone to worship golden calves. And that's what they did. For the next 300 and whatever years, they worshiped golden calves and also an array of other idolatry. Now you think that somebody up there in the 10 tribes would say, I mean, is this permissible? Can we really do this? Is this? And they obviously had some sort of a answer. He had some sort of an answer according to the Torah. It is permissible, so whatever the reasons that he gave. So sometimes a person can think that he's really going according to the Torah, but he can be fooling himself. So that's what it says. You have to chew your cud. You have to chew it over. Nit for lazen of it says Nachahora can men always learn from simony tahora by an oath. We talked about this when we learned in the Chumash. A bird, you cannot decide on your own if a bird is kosher or not. You have to have what's called a Masura. It has to be given over to you by a previous generation, a rabbi that saw that his rabbi, whatever, used to eat this type of bird. In Plug, to leave Vos, Darfman, Aben Masura, why do you have to have a rabbi tell you? It says in the Torah what the signs are. If an animal has the signs of a kosher bird, so we alone can know. It's not written clearly in the Torah, the rabbis, but there are clear signs of what a kosher bird is. You look in the Shulchan Aruch, and there it is. Nevertheless, you cannot, even if it has all the signs, you're not allowed to eat a bird unless you saw someone from the previous generation, a rabbi, a God-fearing Jew, eat it. Nor the Indian is, the whole idea is, oifen eingenem seichel, on your own mind can men nit verlassen, you can't rely. Men can learn in Shulchan Aruch, you can learn the Shulchan Aruch, when a feel of fear in sich, loit sein seichel, and go according to what you've learned, lifnei mishuras adin, and you think that you're being very strict on yourself, und sein b'shas maisa, shul tachtish, you can be in the lowest levels of hell, God forbid. Like this fellow that hated Chabad for absolutely no reason. He was sure he was right. He was sure, but he never really thought about it. You have to go after your rabbi. So he went after his rabbi, right? But he never thought about checking it out to see. As Darvzain Masura, you have to have somebody else tell you what you're doing is right. Was Masura is oich from Lashon Masira, his kashrus. It also means to be given over and to attach yourself. His kashrus sum Rebbe, especially you have to be attached to the Rebbe. this? Excuse me. Rebbe Tzayed, what is this word? I think maybe there might be a mistake here. Rebbe Tzayed. Excuse me. Excuse me. Can't find the one book that I want. 1 second. Okay, a Rebbe. Interesting. I don't know. Here it is. Here it is. Excuse me, please. I understand. But Rebbe Tzayed, it has to be a Rebbe that is a hunter. What does it mean as a hunter? A Rebbe was hat sich oisek, a Rebbe which he himself, he is, you want to make Jews come close to Torah, you have to go according to the Rebbe, but it has to be a Rebbe that he himself is one who saves souls of the Jews. The law is that by the bird, the kosher bird, is it has to go. You have to go and ask a hunter, a person who hunts, a Jew who hunts the birds, and he knows what type of birds are kosher. He received it from the previous generation, right? Because how do you get birds? You have to hunt them, or you have to grow them. So he knows what birds are kosher. He received it from previous generation. It has to be a person that works with birds. So here's also the same thing. It has to be a Rebbe that he himself works with catching birds, that he makes matzil nefashos, that he is a Rebbe that he saves Jewish souls. When oich baki bayam, and he is expert in them, ube shemoteim, and all their names, from eitzes yetzer, from he's free from the advice of the yetzer hara. So the law is by a bird, in order to eat the bird, that you have to go to a hunter, one who hunts birds and knows exactly what the birds are and nature, and ask him, is this bird kosher or not? And he'll say, oh no, this bird, these types of birds, we don't catch birds like this. These type of birds are forbidden, right? We don't catch type of birds like that. They just had a picture over here of Rav Kenyevsky of blessed memory, that he had this, it's permissible, we learned in this week's Torah portion that it's permissible to eat locusts. So he had a person who was an expert come and bring him, right, which locusts are forbidden. There's Yemenite Jews and there's Moroccan Jews. They say that there's certain locusts that are permissible. To bring him locusts that they say are permissible. He didn't rely on himself. So it's the same thing. Let's take it back to what we're talking about. It is essential that every Jew should try to influence another Jew to come closer to Judaism. That's the first commandment of the Torah: be fruitful and multiply. One Jew makes another Jew. It's essential that every Jew should be occupied in this. Chabad just wanted to start the ball rolling. But when you do it, when you make another Jew come close to Torah, the commandment is not just to make friends or to make a group or to be popular or to make up your own ideas. You have to know what the Torah says clearly, and you have to then draw Jews to what the Torah says clearly, and not to water the Torah down to them. I mean, nowadays it's the ridiculous proportions that they redefine what a Jew is. Not only are they bringing Jews closer to the Torah, they're destroying the whole Torah, and they're saying there's no such thing as a Jew. A Jew is anybody who wants to be a Jew. So if so, there's no Jewish people, right? There's no Jewish people anymore. According to the Torah, that was the whole big thing of Christianity. That the Torah is now different. A non-Jew can marry a Jew. A Jew can marry a non-Jewish woman. If so, you've destroyed all of Judaism. It's exactly the opposite of what Moshiach is supposed to do. You're supposed to strengthen Judaism. But you get more people, right? You get more people this way, right? You become popular. But that's ridiculous. You're becoming popular for what, right? You're becoming popular for... It's like saying if you want more customers to come into the bank, then everyone who comes into the bank, you let them take out money without any identification. You don't have to have any ID. Just come and give away money to everybody. You'll have a lot of customers, a lot of people. but you're destroying the whole bank. The same thing with Judaism. It has to be very exact, but you have to try to influence as many Jews as possible, even if it's just one, but as many to come closer to the Torah, but not to wreck the Torah. That's number one. Number two, you always have to check yourself, chew your cud, to see if what you're doing is the right thing. That's also another thing when it says the way the Jews got out of Egypt, it says that the Yam Suf is split to the right and to the left. In order to get out of Egypt, you want to bring the future redemption. So it has to be on the right and on the left. You have to be severe. They have to be severe. That's the left. And you have to have love. That's the right. You have to have both sides. If not, you're not going out of Egypt. Not going through the sea. Very important message, beautiful message. The Rebbe, an attitude that we should, of how we should direct this dynamic goal of changing the whole entire world, convincing Jews to be Jews. Have to have split hooves and chew your cud. Okay, let's learn the Yom Yom. What happened? Why? First of all, I think we didn't do yesterday's, so we'll have to do 3 today. Here we go. Let's see. One minute. I don't know what I did over here. Okay, good. I get it. All right, here we go. The Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, said that my father, the Alter Rebbe, he's the Moses of Hasidut Chabad. He began the whole thing. The sages said that the Torah was given to Moses, but Moses acted generously. Yes. The Torah was given to Moses, and Moses acted generously, and he shared it with the Jews. The constant fire relating to the teachings of Chabad Hasidus was given by the Maggid to my grandfather. The Maggid, this is the Tzemach Tzedek said this, and his grandfather is the first Rebbe of Chabad. My grandfather, the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, he acted generously, and he gave it to anyone who occupies with anyone who learns Hasidut. I'm absolutely certain that whoever teaches another person and arouses him, the constant fire, Eish Tamid, is assured that he'll have a reward, and it will never go out. The reward will never be extinguished. Now, that was yesterday. Now let's do today. Here it always says today. 1 second. 1 minute. What's going on over here? Yeah, okay. Yeah, today. The blessing of the Kohanim, when the Kohanim in the synagogue, in the middle of the Shemona Esrei, near the end of the Shemona Esrei, this brings down a blessing from God's intellect. When the Kohanim lift up their hands, this brings a blessing to the emotions. When the blessing actually comes down, they bless the Jewish people, this is the lowest aspect. It's called Malchut. So we have intellect, emotions, and Malchut. This is the whole configuration of the 10 Sfirot. Right. My father once said to a great rabbi who knew really how to pray, and he was a tremendous genius, that a Rav must remember at all times, a great rabbi, he was the rabbi of a congregation. You have to remember at every moment that you are standing between being one who brings merit to the public and one who caused the public to sin. The line between the highest of the highs and the most abysmal depth. therefore, a true rabbi, that's the head of any congregation, that every single detail has to touch him to the essence of his soul, because his very soul is at stake. He has a tremendous responsibility, and he has to be very careful. Have a good day, a good Shabbos with Moshiach now. See everyone next Sunday at 8:15 in the morning, but it will be 1 hour earlier than it is now. Like I said before, they changed the clocks in Israel. Is that right? Yes, that's right. That's right. All my clocks say it's 9 o'clock, but it's not 9 o'clock. It's really, in Israel, it is 10 o'clock. So it's going to be, the class will be 1 hour earlier. Have a good day. God bless you all. And may we be dancing on Sunday with the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach, the entire world.